Welcome to the Explainer. If you're training to be a flight instructor, you're probably realizing that just teaching the material is only half the battle. The real trick? Figuring out if your students are actually getting it. Today, we're going to dive deep into a really crucial part of your training, Task D, Student Assessment.
I mean, this is the million-dollar question for every instructor, right? You're up there, you're explaining something, and you just have to know, are they just smiling and nodding, or are they truly understanding what it takes to be a safe pilot? This is exactly where effective assessment comes in. And it's so much more than just grading. It's about getting a genuine look inside your student's head. And let's be really clear, the stakes here are incredibly high. The FAA actually calls it a serious deficiency in instructor performance if you can't properly assess your student. Why so serious? Well, think about it. A bad lesson can be corrected next time, but a bad assessment? That could mean sending an unprepared pilot into the sky, and that's a whole different level of risk.
Okay, so here's our flight plan for mastering Task D. We're going to break down what a truly effective assessment looks like, the tools you'll have in your kit, the huge difference between traditional and authentic methods, the art of giving feedback that actually helps, and of course, how to manage all the risks involved. By the end, you're going to feel way more prepared to nail this on your CFI Checkride.
All right, first things first. Before you can even begin to assess a student, you gotta know what a good assessment actually is. And this isn't a matter of opinion. The FAA gives us a very clear framework to work with.
So here's the first big mindset shift. The FAA defines assessment as a process, not just a one-time thing. So you can forget about the idea of a pop quiz. It's much more like a continuous conversation you're having with your student. You're constantly gathering info, seeing what's clicking, and figuring out where they might need a little more help. It's an active part of every single lesson you teach.
Honestly, this slide is your key to success on the Checkride. The examiner wants to see these exact qualities in your assessment. Is it objective, based on facts and not just a gut feeling? Is it comprehensive, covering all the required skills? And maybe most importantly, is it constructive? Your student needs to walk away with a crystal clear idea of what they did well and a real plan for what to work on next.
So, we've got a solid foundation. Now, let's get practical and talk about the actual tools you're going to use to make these effective assessments happen. The Airman Certification Standards, the ACS, it really breaks assessment down into two major categories, what it calls traditional and authentic. And I'm telling you, understanding the difference and knowing when to use each one is absolutely critical for being a modern flight instructor. And this shows you the difference perfectly. Traditional assessment is all about checking what the student knows, usually through memorization. Can you recite the regs? But authentic assessment, that's about seeing if they can apply that knowledge in a real-world scenario. It's one thing to know the definition of P-factor, it's another thing entirely to manage it on a short field takeoff of the crosswind. It's like the difference between knowing a recipe and actually being able to cook the meal.
Now, while traditional assessment definitely has its place, modern flight instruction puts a huge emphasis on authentic assessment. It's all about getting students ready for the unpredictable reality of flying, not just helping them pass a written exam.
So how do you measure something as complex as risk management? Well, this three-step progression from the ACS is a fantastic example of authentic assessment. You're not just asking for a definition, you're watching them progress. First, can they explain a risk, even with your help? Then, can they practice managing it, maybe with a little assistance from you? And finally, can they manage and decide all on their own? This is how you watch a student turn into a real pilot in command.
Look, an assessment is pretty much useless if you can't communicate the results in a way that helps. And that's where the critique comes in. It's not about pointing out every little thing they did wrong. It's about giving clear, constructive feedback that helps the student actually learn and improve. And the way you ask questions is a huge part of your critique. Your goal is to figure out what they understand, not to trip them up or play gotcha. The ACS literally gives you a list of questions to avoid, things like trick questions or ones that are just way too broad. Here's a good way to think about it. A good question makes them think, while a bad question just leaves them confused. So always aim for questions that are direct, clear, and tied right back to what you were trying to teach. Okay, let's shift gears to something that's always number one, safety. When you're assessing a student in the airplane, you're not just managing the flight risks, you're also managing the risks that come with the assessment process itself.
This is such a critical concept. Safety is always the top priority. But real learning often happens when a student starts to make a mistake, recognizes it, and figures out how to fix it on their own. Your job is to create a safe space for that to happen. You let them get close to an error, but you step in before it ever becomes a real safety issue. It's a skill, a real art that you'll be refining for your entire career.
And this just drives home a key principle from the ACS. Risk management never stops. It's not just about what happens in the air. From the pre-flight brief to the post-flight debrief, you are constantly managing risk to make sure the lesson is both safe and effective. That's really the mark of a professional. Okay, let's bring this all home. We've talked about the theories, the tools. Now let's talk about how you're going to put it all together and demonstrate these skills on your Checkride.
Here it is. This is what it all boils down to. This is the skill the examiner needs to see. They don't just want to hear you talk about assessment, they have to see you do it. Whether you're on the ground or in the air, you need to be actively using these methods to evaluate performance and give feedback that builds a better, safer pilot.
Ultimately, this isn't about passing a Checkride. It's about your core responsibility as an instructor. Assessment is the most powerful tool you have to make sure you're creating pilots who are competent, safe, and smart. So the real question you need to be asking yourself is, how are you going to use everything we've talked about to help your students truly master the art of flight?